within the mall this spring.
A businessman in South Knoxville announced he wants to build a $40 million resort in his neighborhood. Tom Boyd says he wants to build the ancient lore village by spring of 2020. The resort would be near Nixon Road and Sevierville Pike. The fantasy-themed resort calls for 150 homes, 50 of those being tree houses that would have up to 3 bedrooms. Boyd says he wants the village to be a place for peace and quiet where people treat each other with kindness.
I realized that if I could create this village in Knoxville, I could change the thinking of the world. I wanted to create a good place, a happy place where people came together, where they talked and they visited.
Tom Boyd is the father of UT interim president Randy Boyd. We'll have more on that project and those